Hello guys, today I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of my first real estate transaction. So if I look to my left, I have a list of things I want to talk about, so that's why I'm looking there. But I really want to get into the experience of it because I feel like some people have this glorified thinking of how it works and how everything goes. So I want to put everything in a very transparent way. So this was a divorce case or a divorce client. They were divorced and they had to sell the house. And second thing to mention is they were family. I'm not going to say what part of my family. I'm going to keep that in discretion. It's not anyone's business to know. And then I'm breaking the videos into 4 parts. First part is the pre-listing phase. The second part is the listing phase. The third part is the closing phase, and the fourth is the end. When everything finished, how did everyone feel? How was everything? And I'll make a separate video on how much I made and breaking down what I used that money for and how that could help my business in the future and how that has helped my business so far. I don't want to sound ungrateful, but this transaction came with many problems. And the first one came up day one. And the first problem with it was cooperation. I had a very hard time having one side of the party cooperate with me. So I spent, I would say, 1 or 2 months just trying to have the person sign their exclusive representation agreement. Now, this was very frustrating because I wanted to do all these things, get everything ready, get the house ready to sell. It was summertime, so it was the perfect time to sell. Their house that they had now, very hot spot. Everyone drives by it. It's very densely populated, very popular. But we couldn't do anything because the contract wasn't being signed. Eventually, after constant bugging, constant going there, I finally got the contract signed. And I know for a lot of realtors that might have been a red flag to go to. It's not even worth it. But I mean, you gotta think about my position. It was family. I really wanted to help them out. I really wanted the best for them. And second, it was my first transaction. So I really wanted to make this work no matter what. I was willing to put the work, I was willing to put the effort, and I was gonna make it work no matter what. And luckily it ended in a positive note, but in between was chaos, riddled with chaos, riddled with a lot of problems, but we managed to get it done. We managed to get it all figured out. And the thing I'm really happy about is the lessons I've learned, the knowledge I've gone. In one transaction, I feel like many people would have gone in 5 or 10, just because the length of the transaction, the problems that came up, a lot of the things that we dealt with were things that you probably wouldn't deal with in your first transaction. You know, it was a little bit more difficult than usual. So that was the first problem to arise. And this was back and forth. The frustrating part is me constantly giving the contract, putting all the work to have it signed, and then waiting weeks and still nothing. And it got to the point where the contract was finally signed. It got to the point where the contract was finally signed, but at that point, the rulings from the courts and how everything was going, I needed to get new contracts signed for the new way everything was going to work with the compensations and everything like that. So finally the contract is signed, but now I'm here realizing it didn't even matter now because so much time has passed that I need the new contracts. There's no point in it. It was signed maybe a week before the other one was supposed to go in effect. So we made an executive decision to have the second one, just have the new contract be signed, have it signed by all parties. And at that point, I've learned how to deal with my client. I learned how to talk a specific way to get things done. So at that point, it took maybe a week or two to get the second contract signed. So I dealt with the situation a lot better as again, I've learned so much as the deal progressed. The more I learned, especially with dealing with this specific client. So it got easier and easier as it went. So that was the first problem. It was prime time to sell the house, and we were ready to lay just to get the contract signed, which is a huge problem. You want to sell in the best time for the house. You want to get the best bang for your buck. That's what I'm here for, is to make as much profit for you as possible. The second problem arose, a very similar issue, is the lack of urgency when it came to repairing the home. I had the client I gave the client a list of people that I found reputable, and you don't need to use my people. But these are people that my mentor recommended me, that she's done business for years and years and years on end, that do quality work for cheap prices. So there was a lot of work that needed to be done on the house. The painting needed to be redone. The carpeting had to be redone. A lot of the work on the basement had to be done. The outside had to be done. It was a beautiful home, but it had its little problems. It was an old home, and it was under-maintained. So yeah, that was a very big issue for the transaction, I would say. And it ended up that none of our people were used except the carpeting. And that one took a lot of convincing, and that's a story in itself, which I'm gonna tell you in a second if we wait a minute here. But it got to the point where the client who was living in the house decided that they're just gonna use their friend to repair everything. And that was a total disaster. My client ended up paying $15,000 for everything, all the repairs. There was a lot of repairs needed, but not $15,000 worth. The people we had were a lot cheaper, a lot better quality. I mean, the painting was done on the house. There was strips of white painting everywhere. The painting was just a horrible job. And then the other work in the house was not great, really. The kitchen appliances were okay. And so, luckily, I came in to go, I forgot exactly why I came into the house, but I might have just came to check on it one of the days. And then I saw my client, and I saw their friend again that they're hiring to do all this work for cheap, but it really wasn't for cheap. It was expensive for what the job was done. And it was a carpeting guy, and he was ready to put these carpets, and I looked at the carpet they were going to use, and I was, oh no. It was like a bright yellow. It was not good. It was really not good. And I'm so glad I was there. I spent 30 to 40 minutes. I'm not even joking. Not an exaggeration. I spent 30 or 40 minutes convincing my client, look, I understand you want to go with this guy, but let's wait. Let's have the person I have come here. Let's have him give a quote. Let's see his work done, and just compare the two options. You know, you don't have to make a decision right now, but just have the options available, because you want the best option for you. It doesn't hurt to just check the other options. So my guy came over there. He gave a quote. It was cheaper. It was cheaper for better quality work. Since I was there, we got the appropriate color for the carpet, what it should have been. And everything was coming in smoothly now. With the carpeting turned out amazing. It turned out really well in the end. He ended up choosing working with my guy, which was a big win. And I kind of want to lay out the time frame for everything. We had the contract, try and get the contract. That took about a month. And then all the repairs for the house, I'm not even joking, it took 2 or 3 months. And that is something I had no control over. I called these people, I made the appointments, they would get canceled, something would happen. And again, I understand a lot of realtors in the comments or just thinking will be like, I would never, I would run. I would get out of this transaction. But it was family, it was my first transaction, and no matter what, I was going to get it done. And that's what I had in my head. No matter what, I'm gonna pull through with this. So we had the house listed. I mean, they were doing repairs while the house was listed. People living in there. Not my client, but specifically a family member of my clients, or family member of mine, didn't keep their space cleaned. So the basement was a total disaster whenever someone went. So I would constantly get bad reviews on the house, specifically, and there is only so much in my control. I've had I would total it as couple hours of just conversations on making sure the place was clean, making sure the specific locations that we're getting bad reviews on were clean. But it was talking to a soundboard. It was talking to a wall. There was no progress getting done. And the repairs were being done super slowly. His friend would take weeks to even show up. So we made an executive decision, and I've talked to both of my clients, and they agreed to it, that the house had to go off the market. It wasn't getting a good image. And this was a busy road. This house had a phenomenal location. I mean, it really didn't even need marketing itself, just because of how busy of a road it was on. And so we had to take the house off the market, and we did that for, I would say, 2 or 3 weeks to finish all the repairs. I know it took in total 2 or 3 months to finish all the repairs, which is just crazy, because the estimated time that if we used all my people, at most would have been a month. And that was to get everything spotless, everything clean. And it was just time wasted. And the problem with this, that if you're not in the real estate business, you might not realize, is timing is a huge factor for selling a house. We were in the prime time to sell the house originally. But with all this waiting, school started now, it slowed down a lot. And so when it was busy, the house was a disaster. When it finally got fixed, when stuff finally got done on it, now it wasn't really a high peak time to be selling the home. So this was a huge problem. This created a lot of waiting, a lot of anticipation on the house. And we did have, finally, when it slowed down, we did have people come in, positive reviews, positive things that other realtors messaged on the showing app. But a lot of times they would have little issues, like with the neighbor, something with this. So we did have a couple offers in between, and they were just way too low for what my clients would accept. So they were just way too low, and it was a difficult conversations with them. Is like, do you want to keep having your house on the market, and do you want to keep waiting for that one buyer to come, or do you want, what is it that you want? Do you want your house to sell, or do you want top dollar and wait a longer period of time for someone to come in? And both my clients were kind of on different point of views. One of them didn't care as much. The other one really wanted top dollar for this, because this selling of the house was very important to them, which is very understandable. I mean, it's a big transaction. So We had a couple offers, and honestly, they were really bad. They were horrible. They were underpricing the home. I mean, a lot compared to what was being sold in the area. They were giving a lot less. For example, the home was originally selling for 550, 549. When we took the house off the market, we also decided to put it for 539. So we took 10K less, 10K away from the house price so we could have more showings. And the offers we were getting were like 515, 510. There was one that's low, high 400s, and that was on top of 4% compensation to the real estate agent, closing costs 3%, and it was just not great deals for my client. It was really not great deals for my client. So yeah, that was a big issue. Was a lot of just under offering. And one thing I do have a bone to pick as someone who is new to this industry. I talked to many amazing real estate agents who were interested in the house, and I appreciate all of them. But I realized that this business doesn't have something to with uphold the standard, I feel like, as much as it should. I had a lot of real estate agents that were just poor, that were thinking about the best for themselves, and that really stuck to me because I was like, that is crazy. I had one of these offers that came, and we were like, hey, look, we'll accept the offer, but we're gonna take 1% away from you, and that was still like 2% for the agent. And she decided, no, I'm not gonna take it. And I was mind blown. To give you perspective, I believe they would have still made about $8,000. And I was just mind blown that you're putting yourself first instead of the fiduciary duty to your client. And that is what we signed up to do, is to do the best for our clients. And so when that happened, it took a big hit on like, whoa, this industry isn't as sunshine and rainbows. A lot of these people, I understand you have to make a living, but you can make a living being a good person and doing what's best for your client. So a lot of people would come in and call me and just ask no other information about the house except, how much are you offering us? How much are you giving us? And that was shocking, absolutely shocking. I understand the times are hard, and I understand this, but we gotta do what's best for a client. That's the ultimate goal. So that was really shocking for someone who just joined the industry. That was a little bit of a tidbit, but I did want to share that. So, going back to the house, we finally got two offers actually around the same time. So it was a little bit of a bidding war, which was amazing. And I'm very fortunate for this. I heard this recommendation is, whenever you have a buyer's client or whenever you're a buyer's agent, always let them know that you talk to the agent, right? Always let them know that. So both of these clients called me because it was my number on the listing. They probably drove past it, busy area. Both of these other agents' clients called me, and I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know any of it. The first question I asked is, "Are you represented?" And then I try to be as hopeful as possible. But let me tell you, if you're gonna be the one calling me, I'm gonna do my best to convince you that this is the best decision for you, and I'm really good at doing that. So, it was very fortunate that both of these clients called me because they both really wanted the house after having that talk with me. And I'm not saying I'm the only factor to that, but I think I was a big contributor to that factor. And they both really, really wanted the house. So we had a mini bidding war. It wasn't super crazy, but they had similar offers. But one of the client and one of the people who offered, one of the buyer's client, the person we actually ended up with offered no inspection. And I was telling my client, I was like, look, this house has had so far many problems, and I think that it could potentially come up with something. And my client was, you grow this emotional attachment to the house. Obviously, you're like, no, got nothing wrong with this house. But I highly suggested, same offer. This client seemed a little bit better, and no inspection. And this is leading up to a second huge disaster out of all these little mini chaos balls. We got the second huge disaster of this transaction, which is it fell through. Long story short, the buyer who is interested, and honestly, I really think this is something that the loan officer should have told me or given a heads up on. The buyer client for his loan, visa actually expired, and he was in the process of trying to get it back. And so because of that, it was on contingent of the finance, the deal just completely broke. And once that happened, it was kind of like a heart-shattering moment because everyone was excited. The deal was finally done. And that's a lesson I learned in this business is don't get my clients excited. That was a huge mistake, is only tell my clients things when we have definite results or definite actions. And that is something I've learned with this transaction as well, that I feel like may take someone multiple transactions to realize. But yeah, it fell off, and it was the other person was still interested, but now they were like, look, we know you're a little bit more desperate. And I've been staying in contact with both of them. I'm being very communicative. I'm creating these relationships regardless, in my brain, regardless of if these transactions work out. I'm creating these relationship with these agents who can be useful in the future, can be useful contacts. So I'm creating relationships on top of it. So I'm trying to be as respectful as possible and keep these communications going as best as I could. So, yeah, I talked to this other agent, and she's like, look, now that we know that this fell apart, we're gonna offer you less. And my client was at a crossroads of, we were about to get this much, we're getting a lot less, we're paying a lot on closing costs and whatnot. And from what I know, the buyer client, he couldn't really do more. That's all he could really afford. Like, he couldn't offer too much more. The best he could do is take closing costs or that away or lower it, but he couldn't really do more. So yeah, so we were at a crossroads. My client decided not to go for it. It wasn't worth it with the decreased price, with the decreased offer they gave. It really wasn't worth it. And then I get a call from the one who fell apart, the one we were about to go with. I got a call from that agent, and she was like, hey, look, keep us in mind. My client really wants this house. And I'm telling you, it's a very popular location. It's a very high demand location. And I honestly think that carried this transaction through. And it had no HOA, which very popular in my area. And she called and she said, look, my client really wants it. We're figuring a way for him to get a loan. Keep us in mind. So about a week goes by, or a week or two goes by, and she's keeping me update. And long story shorter, he ended up getting a private loan on the house. And this is another thing about this transaction is, from what I've heard from my mentor, is a private loan is not very common, especially in our area. So this was another thing where even the agent who helped to get the private loan had 15 plus years in the business, my mentor having 10 plus years in the business, 15 plus years in the business as well. And they were both not really confident in this as well, which is a very high, which says a lot, because it just isn't common in our area, or maybe even in general. I'm not completely sure. So yeah, that did bring complications, but we ultimately we did figure everything out. And yeah, the buyer's client, I was informed, really needed this house because his rent was ending and he didn't have anything else to go. So he needed this. He wanted it from the moment he got the private loan. He wanted everything done within a week. I know that is insane for our business. But it ended up taking about 2 weeks. It had to be delayed because my client had some stuff that had to be paid off, that they weren't fully aware of, which I would take partial responsibility for. I should have done more of the work on that. I talked to both of my clients, if they had anything that had to get paid off, if everything was paid off, if they had anything of the sorts, and they both said no. But I didn't do my extra due diligence of doing that title search before and doing all that. So that I do take partial responsibility for. So that delayed the transaction for another week, and everything was tense. Everyone was high stress, from both sides of the transactions, because you got to realize our side of the transaction, I mean, we've been waiting forever to sell the house, and this price was top dollar. It was exactly what we were asking for. And we have the other side where his rent's about to end. He has kids who go to school very near there. It was hard to find something like our property, or not our property, but my client's property. So yeah, ultimately it did finish. It did go through. And yeah, that kind of resolutes the listing phase. And even we're already in the closing phase. I guess I'm losing track. But yeah, so that we're in the closing phase. Everything's being done. Again, it's a divorce case, so both of the clients went in separately, and this was over Thanksgiving, and everything fortunately got signed. Everything was done. Everything got finished. No more surprises. And I finally got my first real paycheck, and this was 6 months of nonstop work. And honestly, just to I'm gonna give a recap of the closing and what I can relay of what everyone felt, which a big part of it was relief, myself included. There was multiple times in this transaction where I felt like quitting, and I'm really proud of myself for not doing that. Multiple times that I was told by my mentor to just maybe be the best option, to just leave it, cut your losses, not worth it. And the amount of time I spent on this transaction really didn't equivalent the amount I got from the transaction. I mean, I put a lot of work into it. But a big part of me, the money, very important to me. I'm not gonna be somebody who lies, but a big part of me was, I'm ready so far in, and I really, if there's another person that is going to help this family member, they're not gonna put the work I'm gonna put in. They're not gonna deal with the stuff that I've dealt with. So I really didn't want to leave them hang out to dry. So I was gonna help them out no matter what, and I was gonna put the effort to help them out no matter what. And there was a lot of things in between that I may have forgotten, may have not mentioned. It was a long transaction, so I didn't write a note of everything that happened. If I did, it would be about an hour, 2 hour video. But yeah, I mean, overall, it was a learning experience. It was something that I feel like helped a lot in my business, because now I came out of it better than I would have even 4 transactions in. I mean, I've learned so much. I mean, I constantly had to rewrite contracts. I constantly had to get back with this offer and counter offer and all this stuff. And I've learned a lot on contract writing, which was my most uncomfortable as a new agent. You're very uncomfortable with writing a contract. I feel like, unless you've done some type of previous work where that's what you do. So I got very comfortable with things I was previously uncomfortable with, which was really good and something I wouldn't trade for. I would definitely put in that effort again. If I had to give myself advice for this transaction, is don't put all your effort into just this transaction. I really put my full attention, my full effort, my full mental capacity into this transaction, where I felt working on finding clients, working on doing all these other things to better my business was kind of halted because of the mental strain it took on me because of the mental strain this transaction took on me. And the other advice I would tell myself is, hey, look, we can work on this transaction, but we can also work on your business and bettering your business. So I think out of everything, that's the one of the biggest thing I've learned. Now to the closing phase. I would say again, just to recap, everyone felt relief. I mean, both me and the other agent, my client and their client. I mean, their client really needed this. Everyone felt a lot of relief. Everyone felt happy of the results of it finally being over. And I have to say, if this person didn't purchase the home, I'm very confident, I would say even with 100 to 99% certainty, that they would not have gone an offer as good as they did. It was in the market for a long time. It had its issues, but this person really wanted it. They were highly motivated, and that made a huge difference. So yeah, I'm ultimately, to end everything, I'm very grateful for everything. I'm grateful for the experiences that I learned. Starting the new year, it's the 2nd right now. Starting the new year, I plan on doing a lot of work on my marketing, a lot of work on getting the clients. To be honest, I think that's the hardest thing as a newer agent, especially at the time we are, when it's predicted that 60 or 70% of all real estate agents will be leaving this year. I think now is the time to capitalize on that and really market myself as the expert in my area. So I guess this is the time where I'm going to promote myself a little bit. If anyone is interested in any real estate related help, any real estate related, whether it's question, concerns, whether you need me to represent you as your agent, I'm a Virginia Realtor. I predominantly focus on Fredericksburg, specifically Spotsylvania County. I work in Stafford, and I work in King George, and I'm very familiar with the area, and I think I could do the best for you if you're willing to give me a shot. Anyways, that's all I really had to say. If you enjoyed it, please like the video. Awesome. Well, you guys have a great day. Bye.